I'm Natalie Madison, you guys know that, Artisan Cakes, and we're doing the pumpkin spice whisk cake roll, basically pumpkin dream roll today. This recipe is so easy. It can literally take us just 15 minutes to whip it up, and then it takes a little bit of effort to roll it. But this is a quick, easy recipe that you can make at home in a flash and surprise everybody with your expertise. We're going to begin by creaming our butter and sugar, which is part of your recipe. So you can go ahead and lower your mixers and let's cream that up on a medium speed until it's light and fluffy. We're going to drop one egg at a time into our mixer bowl. So let that incorporate just a little bit. And our second egg. We'll let that continue coming together. All right, now that that's together, we're gonna go ahead and add our pumpkin. Get all of that good pumpkin goodness in there. And I will always add my dry ingredients at the very end. And that's because I don't want to overmix that dough. I don't want to build gluten strands. I want this cake to stay nice and soft and tender. Let's go ahead and add our oil and our buttermilk right into the mixer. And then our flour and soda mixture. And this is a good time to preheat the oven. It takes, 5 to 10 minutes to preheat our oven. So ours is going to be set to 300, but at home, standard oven, probably about 325. Now we get to choose our spices. In our little stack, we have nutmeg, then we have clove, cinnamon, and then the bonus is the Jamaican allspice. You can add as much or as little as you'd like. I like all of the flavor, so I generally add all of the spice, but some people aren't as crazy about all that flavor. So you make your decision how much you want to add. I'm going to dump in every single one and sniff every single cup, because I just love those spicy smells. I don't know what it is about Thanksgiving, all these warm spices, they bring me joy. We're gonna stir that in just to combine on a nice low speed. Now I bet you're wondering what we're gonna do with all this magic, yeah? We're gonna take one half-sheet pan covered with one parchment layer. And then we're going to take all of this, dump it out onto our sheet pan and spread it with our large spatula. So we're just gonna we're gonna try to keep it nice and even across this entire sheet pan. This really is like pumpkin pie in cake form. I'm going to spread this back and forth until it reaches the outside edges of our pan. And it's a nice thin layer. The hardest part here is getting a somewhat even layer. So I move it away from the center, out toward the sides, and fill up my cake pan. This cake doesn't move much as it bakes, so it's important that we're fairly the same thickness on all areas. Now we get to add the goodness to the top of this. You can sprinkle just about anything you want on top of the spice roll. It just seemed natural for us to offer walnuts and toffee for this one. You could do almonds, you could do pecans, you could do any kind of toasted candy, anything that won't melt in those low temperatures. And you want to make sure that there's enough space that these kind of sink in. If they're too thick, it will just kind of glue itself together, so leave a little bit of negative space. So this is about the right coverage. I can still see the pumpkin underneath, but I have a nice coating of nuts and toffee. And the way this bakes off, this will be the top of our roll. So when we pull it out of the oven, we'll flip it over, fill the underside, and roll the underside up. So this becomes the beautiful top surface. These are gonna bake in your preheated oven for 15 minutes. This is hot. We do need to let this cool for probably at least 15 minutes before we try to touch anything. It's hot right now. And just go ahead and release the cake from the outside edges using a paring knife. This will help keep it from cracking if it starts shrinking. So as it cools, it will start shrinking a little bit. Just want to turn that knife, leading the edge around that pan. And then we're going to flip it out of this pan. And we're going to do that by taking another piece of parchment, laying it right over our cake. And then we're going to hold it down with our half sheet board. However works best for you. Hold it tight, flip it over, and then we should be able to lift that pan right off. We can attempt to peel back our parchment paper, but if it starts to stick, leave it on a little bit longer. Mine's coming off cleanly, so it's probably good. Just giving this a little feel. Like I can already tell it's cooler. This is probably about the stage that I would go ahead and add my filling. We are going to pile this on right down the middle. And then we have a smaller spatula that we can spread this out with. And the cake is super tender right now, so you have to spread it fairly gently. And if you don't like a lot of icing, you can always take some of that right back off. So don't feel like it has to be super thick. All right, are we ready to attempt the roll? Some of the tricks to rolling is we are going to use the parchment that's underneath to our advantage. So we're gonna keep that nice and tight. That gives us something to hold on to and to grab and pull with. So we're going to start by just rolling the back edge a little bit and folding it over. That's always the hardest one. It's going to crack, let it. Let that first little edge crack. Now, we're going to use that parchment. We're going to use it to roll over our cakes. Keep it nice and tight, nice and tight. We're gonna take and then peel back a little bit of that parchment and we're gonna keep on rolling it over. We're gonna keep it nice and tight though. Bring it closer to you and then just keep on rolling. Peeling back that parchment and roll. Nice and tight and lift and roll. Nice and tight. I still ended up with a lot of extra there at the end. What I found worked out really well the last time is I tucked my parchment kind of underneath and then refrigerate it. Refrigerate the heck out of it before you go to slice it tomorrow. When this chills enough, you're gonna lop off the two outside edges. That way you have nice, clean cake roll for presentation. I want to say thank you guys so much for joining me for Swiss cake roll, pumpkin style. This, when you bite into this, it really is like pumpkin pie with the whipped cream and all the vanilla deliciousness that goes with it. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. We enjoyed it.
I did too.